Hi class, this is Mr. Tan, and today we are doing what unit? P2, that's the question. What unit is this?
Understanding the age.
Understanding and leading change. And we're on P2 as you said, and P2 says to evaluate. Keyword here, what does evaluate mean? Good, look at the pros and cons. In the English dictionary it says to weigh up. To weigh up is look for the pros and cons. Ways in which internal and external drivers of change affect leadership, team, and individual behavior within an organization. So, looking at this question, I know you've looked at it, what do you think the first thing we need to be talking about is? Yes, we need to be looking at the situation Tesco's, and we're using Tesco's because in this situation, Tesco's is the case study. If your college has got a different case study, then you use that case study. So let's look at the situation at Tesco's. What's happening in Tesco's?
In 2015, they lost like 6 billion.
Yes, excellent. So, I mean, there's been huge things that's been going on for Tesco's. Tesco's in 2015 made a pre-tax loss of £6.4 billion. You know, £100,000 is a billion, so 6,000 billion pounds odd they lost in 2015. And subsequently, they made these losses due to another driver of changes, which we're going to come on to. But basically, their response to this pre-tax loss was caused by a number of factors. And their response to this was to buy Bookers. And by buying Bookers or wholesalers, they would have access to over 30,000 independent stores. In addition to that, Bookers owned Londis and Budgens. And Londis and Budgens are a cheap, more affordable type food stores that could compete direct with Aldi and Lidl. So consumers would see them on the same par in terms of offering value for money or cheaper priced goods. So we know that this was happening with Tesco's and big changes needed to happen. And this was actually a big change for Tesco's. And when we look at changes, well, we are actually talking about how did it affect Tesco's. It affects Tesco's in terms of the structure, because the structure of Budgens, Londis and Bookers needs to now integrate into the structure, organizational structure in terms of Tesco's. Their products need to integrate in terms of Tesco's. The Tesco's products are now going to be going into Budgens, into Londis and into Bookers, even though it will probably still have the same brand as Bookers, Budgens and Londis. It will be the Tesco's products, but people won't know it with a different brand. It's going to affect the culture and the people. The people and the culture of Budgens, Bookers and Londis will need to now integrate into the way that Tesco's are conducting their business. And also we can see the technology is going to change. The technology of Budgens, in terms of self-service tills, in terms of Tesco's that they have it, in terms of their IT systems, in terms of their order processing, in terms of contacting customers and their loyalty cards and their loyalty schemes. All of these things are going to need to be integrated from Tesco's into Bookers, Budgens and Londis. So, big organisational change that needs to happen. And you could say, oh, well, you just get on and do it, but the success or failure of a business in terms of integration will depend upon how successful this is. Conducted by who? Who is it conducted by? People. People actually put everything into place. It doesn't just happen. Robots don't do it. It's people who do it. So when we're talking about all these things and the strategy in the middle, the strategy of Bookers will change, the strategy of Budgens will change, and the strategy of Londis will change. Do you understand? And changing people's minds and their culture way of doing things is going to be a complete change. So after you've explained that, we now need to look into the drivers of change. So when we're talking about the drivers of change, what are we talking about? Sorry? We're talking about what? What are the drivers of change? What factors? Yeah. So just looking at this. We're talking about SWOT and PESTEL. So what is SWOT? Good. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Okay. And PESTEL. What is PESTEL? And environmental. Go. Good. Political, economic, social, technological, legal, environmental factors that have had an impact on Tesco's, because we're using this as an example. So tell me, what are some of the things that have been drivers of change in terms of SWOT and PESTEL on Tesco's? Brexit. How has Brexit affected Tesco's? Good, Amina. Yes. Good. The cost of goods have increased. Because of Brexit, the value of the pound has decreased. And because the value of the pound has decreased, Tesco's buying products from Europe into the UK now become more expensive. Therefore, in terms of the profit and loss account, or P&L account, or trading account, the cost of goods are more expensive. If the cost of goods are more expensive, you take that away from your sales, therefore you have a lower gross profit. And therefore a lower gross profit percentage margin in terms of previous years when the cost of goods weren't as high. Okay, so there's one thing that the total sales now, when the administration charges take away from the gross profit, gives you a net profit, so your overall net profits are lower. What else has happened? Increased competition from Aldi and Lidl. Excellent, John. So we can see here increased competition from Aldi and Lidl, and combined with economic factors in terms of consumer spending. So consumer spending now, wages have not increased, and yet the cost of, or the rate of inflation has increased faster or higher than the rate of people's wages increasing. And because of that, and with the competition, all of us have less money in our pockets to spend. And because we have less money in our pockets, we have found, according to consumer research, people are not just shopping in one place. People are actually shopping in Tesco's, in Aldi, and Lidl to try and get the best deal, which means the effect and the driver of change on Tesco's is the fact that, again, it's affecting the sales, the overall sales. So the overall sales are now decreasing, as well as the cost of goods in Tesco's have been increasing, which gives you a lower gross profit margin and a lower gross profit percentage margin, and therefore reducing you to a lower net profit percentage margin if your administration costs stay the same. Okay, so here we can see the result of why Tesco's have bought Booker's, which also own Londis and Budgens, to try and tackle lower consumer goods, selling Tesco's products, to tackle the competition from Aldi and Lidl, and to help expand their distribution by targeting independent retail stores by buying Tesco's goods through Booker's. So, now we've looked at that, we have to say to ourselves, how does this affect individual behaviour? So how does this affect individual behaviour? Yes, so if we look at Kubler-Ross change curve, we can see that people's behaviour is going to be affected by how they feel. And employees and staff in Budgens, in Londis and Booker's are going to feel quite uncertain about their jobs. They're not going to know what's happening. So they might go through various stages, including shock initially, followed by denial in terms of what's happening, followed by frustration, feeling frustrated knowing that they can't really do much, but they need to work and they need to earn a wage to pay the mortgage and their bills, to put food on the table, followed by maybe being depressed. And then that's at the bottom of the curve. And then once you've gone past the depression stage and you pull yourself out, then you start thinking about experience. You know, stage 4 is depressing, that most of the start them pull themselves out of depression into experience. And then you start taking decisions. And then finally, you decide, okay, this is what it is. I've still got my job. I know I'm going to have to change, because if I don't change, then I'm really going to be out of a job. So now you start to integrate. And then you look for the opportunities and you look for the benefits and you say, how can I actually become part of this? And what is my role? Yeah? So we go through this change curve. What's going to be the, because the key word here said evaluate the effect of drivers of change on leadership, team, and individual behavior. So what's the disadvantage of these drivers of change initially on individuals? What's the disadvantages?
Will lead to demotivation.
Yes, it's going to lead to demotivation. Yes, and demotivation of people because they're scared and they're uncertain and unsure is going to lead to, inefficiencies and decrease in productivity because people don't care and people are scared. Yeah, but what's the advantages of this for individuals in the long term? Once people get to the integration stage, what's the advantages? People are more confident, people are going to be more productive, and the advantage for Tesco's in terms of this is that you've got a wider range of knowledge basis in a wholesale business, a wider range of knowledge in a lower market category than Tesco's in terms of Londis and Budgens. So you've got all that experience. So the good thing is you're targeting a wider section of the marketplace. And in 2016 and 2017, we've seen increase in pre-tax profits for Tesco's in 16 and 17, okay, which has directly come, a lot of it,